Hello, this is Will Faber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a first submission by Sarah of her horse Grande. Now, Grande is not actually her horse, it's a school horse. It was a jumper, it's 18 years old, and she only gets to work with it a few days a week, and she's going to try to improve it, getting work over its back. So obviously, as we can see here, this horse has suffered from what many jumpers have suffered from in this country, is that they're not worked over their backs, and the backs have completely dropped away. You can see this horse's spine even went to one side there, looking at the spine in the middle of his back. So it will be looking at him here. We can see how he's almost got kissing spine there. And you can see how that shark fin withers, that's from his back, never really developing correctly. So this horse looks like a horse who's never had a top line. All his muscling is all on the underside of his neck and under his belly. And once again, you can see that's why his belly hangs down so far once you get to that. Now, your equipment and all that looks pretty good. I'm not seeing any problem here with how you're fitting that. And as you said, unfortunately, hunter jumper people are notorious for just ignoring the fact that none of their saddles fit their horses, which is unfortunately how so many beautiful jumpers end up ruining, as this kind of mentality that, we just don't worry about that kind of thing and we just pile a bunch of pads on there. It just doesn't work very well, as you can see, as we see horse after horse that's been a jumper that, unfortunately looks like this. If only people would realize that their horses would jump much better if they had them working over their backs and they jump for a lot longer time. But the way you've got this hooked up here pretty well is seems to be working pretty well. And the biggest thing here is I would advise that you go right ahead and hook a lunge line on, even when you're working in a round pen like this, because a horse that is this stiff has a tendency to kind of run into the walls, even though they're kind of round. So if you just have a little bit of a lunge line on the horse, you'd be able to keep them going. The biggest thing here is you're just not getting the horse to move actively enough. I think the shambone is adjusted pretty well correctly. But he's just going so slowly. So we do have to activate them from behind. And this is also another bad habit to get into, is that it's changing the direction loose like that, because what happens is when we start working horses, they start flipping around all the time. Same thing when we lunge horses. The Western people like to do this. I don't know why, but if you're really good at it, it doesn't make a difference. But if you teach a beginner how to do this, where they have the horse flipping around on the end of the lunge line, pretty soon that's all the horse is doing, is flipping around on the end of the lunge line. So I don't recommend that at all. I think you should go up to the horse and turn it around and start again in that direction, just so the horse never gets that idea to flip away. Once again, what an expert does is one thing, but what you're going to be able to do at home if you don't have that many skills. And sometimes I see experts assume that people can just do what they do. I think of the movie Buck with this Buck Brannigan fellow, and yes, he's a master roper, obviously. If you saw that movie, he was able to rope horses' hind legs, and he even dislocates a few of their hips in the process. But once again, to show a bunch of beginners that this is something that you could go home and even consider doing is just crazy, because it might be something that someone who's worked their whole life to get those kind of skills could get away with. I mean, that movie as an example, if you've ever seen it, he almost gets kicked in the head many times while he's working and gets a few people hurt in the movie. So I found that really outrageous and not at all what one should be trying to emulate. So just some things, and once again, we have so much misinformation out there. Everybody in the horse business everyone who's ever owned a horse has an opinion about him, even many who don't. And certainly most people have never trained any beyond whatever the most basic kind of work is. So, you really need to get your information from people who really know what they're talking about, if that makes any sense. So leave it at that. So here the biggest thing is, while everything is adjusted correctly, you've just got to work him to get him moving. I mean, this horse is so hollow that he's just barely even moving there, and he's just kind of dragging his hind legs along. So until you get him to really start swinging through, you're not going to see anything develop, even if he is stretched down. Once again, like in Western riding, we see people do the peanut rolling thing, where they have their horses' necks way down, but if you look at their back ends, they're not coming through. So once again, the position of stretching is only the position that is going to facilitate the horse coming through behind. But if you don't ask him to come through behind, nothing's going to happen. And that's kind of what's happening here. So once again, that's like what I would like to see you do, is just lunge this horse on a lunge line. Even if you're in a round pen, have a lunge line on him. So you can just keep him looking a little more in the direction. You can see how he's kind of counterflexed all the time and looking to the outside. And a horse like this, even in a round pen, will have a kind of tendency loose, like he's doing there, to kind of run into the rails, so to speak. And that's not what we want him to have doing. So So once again, this is not a bad stretch. It's starting better than nothing, but you can see how his legs are just coming out of the ground like they're stuck in glue or like stuck in heavy mud. So, and you're not really doing anything about it. And once again, you need to get yourself. And I do notice there, because I just happened to see that you have one of these silly carrot stick things you're trying to lunge this horse with, and you need to get rid of that and get yourself an actual lunge whip. The problem with those kind of sticks, and the problem with that whole approach to training that's using these kind of little sticks with these lash on the end of it, is that you are working too close to the horse. I see people trying to lunge and they've got nothing but a lead rope and one of these little things like you have in your hand there, trying to use it as a whip. And the problem is they're too close to the horse, so they get kicked in the head. Once again, same thing here. So buy yourself a lunge whip. You need to be able actually to get close enough to the horse, and that kind of whip that you have there, really what that is an old-fashioned hunting whip, what we used to use for for outworking hounds, from horseback. But it's just, that's what a crop is. A crop, for instance, is the wooden handle of a hunting whip that has a long lash attached to it. But that's rather hard to use accurately from any distance, unless you're very good at it, and once again, unless you're on the back of a horse. So you need to get yourself a lunge line and a lunge whip and just get this horse more actively in front of your leg. So once again, I tell people all the time, the skill of lunging is being able to use the whip when you need it and where you need it. I tell people this all the time. You want to learn how to lunge, go in your backyard where you have a tree away from horses that you're going to irritate by snapping the whip, and practice over and over again, touching it, touching a spot on the tree, that is, from a distance, the distance that you would be when lunging. So same here, you're just not really asking for anything, so you need to ask this horse to go much more actively forward, even if the horse's resistance is a little above the bridle. Now, this may be a horse, because he has been hollow for so long, you might want to consider putting long side reins on as well as the shambone. Sometimes with these horses that have been extremely hollow for a long, long time, and that have, as you said, this horse's mouth is very dead. So and once again, that's what I don't want to see you do. I want you to stop doing this flipping around thing. So you never really got him moving. And that's really your problem here. You're not working close enough to him. So you need to get yourself a lunge whip, as I said, so you can tap him once in a while, get him moving more actively forward and getting stretching into it. And then you may want to put side reins on as well as these. Now that's looking a little better when you actually get him to move a little bit, but you're still not getting him to move enough. So your biggest problem here is just getting him active enough to get anything to actually happen. Like the way he's going there, he's so slow and so hollow, he's just going to do that for a long, long time. So, first we just have to get him swinging and active. And once again, if you can get the walk there, good. But once again, your walk would be much better if you had this horse on a lunge line and you had a whip that you could actually get to the horse, because he's just basically ignoring you until once in a while you get close enough to get something, and then he kind of spurts forward for a moment and then shuts right back off again. So once again, your equipment adjustment here is all fine. That's just the way you're going about the actual process of lunging. Is you're just, you're not staying behind his eye enough. You're not asking him for enough activity. And I think the biggest problem is that whip that you're using. Once again, get rid of the carrot stick and get yourself an actual lunge whip that you can work far enough away from the horse that it can't kick you. I have personally found one person near death that was in a lunge ring like this, trying to work a horse with a little carrot stick, and that person got kicked in the face, and I found another person who got kicked in the leg with a broken leg. So it's really not safe to have these little tiny whips that make you have to get so close. Now, I guess if you were really good with that lash, you might be able to run it out there, but I don't think it would lend itself to being very accurate. So once again, either way, that's why, as I said, when you get yourself a lunge whip, take it home in your backyard and practice with it. You want to be able to touch a horse in one of three places: in the fleshy part of the buttocks, just above the hocks there. And then you want to be able to touch the horse right on the side, right where your leg would go. And in the case of a horse that flips around, you want to be able to run the lash out and touch him on the shoulder to get him to turn in the direction that you want them to go. So same thing here, that kind of work. And also, not only is it because the horse kind of drags himself sideways like that, you have a good chance of him knocking his legs together. So once again, your equipment is good, but your process here is not very good. You're simply not asking him for enough, and you don't have the equipment that would allow you to do this correctly. But once again, what a pity. I mean, this horse is only 18 years old, but and how sad that people have started thinking of an 18-year-old as being an old horse, because unfortunately, in most cases here in America, especially, not that it isn't this way other places as well, it is. In fact, where it's really gotten bad in Europe is with the show horses because they're running through them even quicker than we are in many cases. So do not imagine that everybody in Europe knows how to ride dressage and does it correctly. Nothing could be further, and that's what's led to sort of a lot of the demise here in America. So unfortunately, we got a lot of people came over here claiming to be dressage trainers who in fact weren't. And this goes all the way back historically to Alois Parajski, who some of you may remember was the managing director of the Spanish riding school, but he was never a trainer. And he actually, if you go to the Spanish riding school today, you will see that he's not mentioned there because he took a lot of credit for doing work that others did. And when we first started dressage in America, Mrs. Steinkraus brought him over here to be her trainer and to sort of help dressage in America. But unfortunately, what I don't think she realized at the time, that he was not a trainer. And if you read between the lines in his own books, he even talks about that, how, when he starts coming over here training, he realized, oh, well, gee, lunging really is something. But he'd never actually done it himself, at the Spanish riding school. He was a managing director. He was not the head rider. So kind of going back to the very beginnings of dressage in America, we got started off by a lot of people who really just didn't know what they were doing, but they had European accents and maybe had ridden a little bit over there and had some claim to fame. But in some cases, that claim to fame was nothing more than having a European accent. So once again, just remember that, you really have to look far and wide, as I did, to find people who actually know how to do this. And it took me a lifelong of study to find what the real deal was. Once again, most people forget that, at the end of World War II, we lost most of the horses and trainers. So it really did not come back for about 2 generations, in which time we sort of, the horse business started all over again. So this is why we ended up having jumpers that end up looking like this. I mean, how ridiculous it is to jump a horse that's not over its back. It's dangerous. Not only the fact that, because the horse may fall down with you or flip on you at any moment if he gets in wrong to a fence, but just what it does to the horse's legs and how it shortens their life. Now, once again, now that you have the lunge line on here, this is much better, or a little better anyway, but I would like to see you I think you're right to lunge the horse in the round pen the way you had him, but I want to see you use the lunge line like you have now to do it. And once again, it'd be fine out here as long as he's not dragging you around. But your biggest problem is it's like riding with no leg. Because you have that silly carrot stick there, you're not able to get to the horse. So the horse is just ignoring you. Because, once again, try getting on a horse sometime and just, not using your legs at all and see what happens. Well, especially if you didn't have a whip, the horse is not going to do much. So you hear what you're doing, you see how you're flipping that little whip around. That doesn't mean anything to this horse. Has quickly realized that it's like people who snap the whip. If you snap the whip over and over again in no time at all, the horse will stop responding to that snap. So what you got to do is get yourself a real lunge whip once again. And I would throw this thing out if I were you, because I think that's about what those things are worth. Get yourself something so you can actually have a leg. Because remember, the correct lunging is just riding from the ground. So once again, if, as in your case, you have no leg, how can you ride? Well, you can't. So this is why this horse is just kind of drifting around and you're not really getting much done. Now, once again, your tack is all correctly fitted. And you were right, when you say that, more than likely the saddle this horse is going in is probably not fitting him. This kind of a horse, once their back has gone as far as this one has, and this horse, I'll tell you now, is on the verge of developing kissing spine. If he doesn't have it now, he would have it before too long. If you see the way his hip bone drops away at the top of his hip there, well, that's basically what's happening is the spine is sort of collapsing down through the hip joint and not staying where it should be, and that's what causes that problem. So if you did not do this work, and you will be able to correct it if you do this work correctly, you can bring this horse, as we have done to many. We've brought them back from people thinking they were never going to be able to be ridden again. But that's soon what would happen to a horse like this. If its back continues going down the road it's going on now, it wouldn't be long before this horse will just start getting so sore in the back all the time that he will be unrideable. And we see so many, sadly, that have that done to them. So once again here, this is better with the lunge line. Your equipment is all correctly adjusted here. As I said, you're probably right to think the saddle that he's in is probably not fitting him. Once again, I would watch my wife's saddle fit lecture, which you may have. But that fit around the shoulders and withers is so important. If you're pinching behind the horse's shoulders, and this is a big horse, once again, and sadly, the fate of so many big horses is just this, that they never get worked in their full stride, which I doubt if this one has ever done in his life from the way he moves around here. And because they start getting shortened up right away, because people don't realize that a big horse is like a small one. You have to get them in their full natural stride in order for them to develop. So I feel like this horse has probably spent very little time. Once again, as soon as you trot, how his whole back just inverts, and you can see how his neck just goes totally U-neck. So his back end has nothing to do with his movement. All this horse is doing here in terms of moving is he's stabbing his front toes into the ground and pulling himself along. And the back end's kind of going along like a trailer. So once again, the big thing here is you need, before he's ever going to get stretching, even in the walk or this, you need to be able to ask him to go forward much more. And you need to be able to do that by having a lunge whip. But we can kind of see what happens to these poor animals. They're big and they never get ridden over their backs because they're so big. It takes a very athletic rider to ride a big horse, when they're babies, until the wave forms, as we like to say. Once the wave comes up and forms, it's easy to ride any horse, and then they become straight and easy. But unfortunately, so many, and especially the bigger the horses are, that's why we see almost every Friesian we see these days is completely swayback, because some overweight person has bought the horse thinking that they can ride it because it's so big, but not realizing the bigger horses are, the weaker their backs are. A heavy person is much better off on a smaller 15 two-hand quarter horse with a short back, or a Pasofino than they are on an 18-hand Friesian with a long back, because that horse's back is just going to collapse underneath them. So the bigger the horse's back and the longer the horse's back is, and the bigger the horse is, the longer it takes them to develop correct work. So just know that. So, you're looking at here, just to be realistic, you're looking at a year once you get this horse to actually stretch into the contact, which you haven't quite gotten all the way there yet. But I feel like you will get there. I feel like the biggest thing missing is just you're simply not asking the horse for enough, and you can't because you don't have a whip that would allow you to do it. So that's the biggest problem that we need to solve. And then we can see whether, he starts to get over his back or not. Now, once again, with the extremely hollow ones, as I said, you can use really long side reins along with the sham bone, sometimes a little double encouragement, so to speak. Now, once again, remember, we never put them on so tight that we're never trying to force the horse's head down. But sometimes they're very useful. We do very often on some of these more, like you'll see with the horse that we have, Miracle, that was almost like a wild horse when we started. It was just so... it would throw its head all over the place, and it just needed some help stabilizing, and it was extremely hollow like this one. But now, as you will see soon, I'm going to do a new video on Miracle here, probably next week, and you'll see how far that horse has come in just this short period of time, and how much you can develop on a horse that was completely swayback, like this one is, But this horse will come around once again once you get it more active. But that's the biggest thing, is you just got to get behind the horse, work a little closer to it, get a lunge whip that actually allows you to touch the horse if necessary. And the horse trots off when you touch it. It's no big deal. Then you just bring them into a small circle until they walk again and start again, till they get used to the idea that you're going to stay behind them and send them on forward. But, it will be really interesting if you can get this horse over its back, because it looks to me like it will be a really good mover. This looks like a horse that was a lovely horse at some time. It's just, once again, think about it's like a car. If you put your car and you just keep driving it and keep driving, yes, it'll probably keep driving for some time, but eventually the oil starts to run out and that sort of thing, and the engine burns up or the brakes go out, this kind of thing. Well, that's what happens to horses, They seem like they kind of go along okay at first when they're young, and people start jumping them and doing all this stuff, and they're able to do a bit of it, but they're not watching, they're not seeing that slow downward spiral which is where the horse, which ends in a horse looking like this, which the next step is the back gets so bad that you can't ride them anymore. So that's what you got to think about. But you're doing a great job. Tack looks good. Just make those things that I talked about. Get yourself a real lunge whip so you can keep the horse going. Work them in the lunge, in the round pen with the lunge line on, so you can keep the horse bending a little bit and work to get the activity. Keep up the good work, and I really look forward to seeing this horse. You can transform this horse. Know that if you get it working over its back, and I think it won't be that difficult when you start asking it to just move a little more actively. Once again, you can try adding the long side reins as well, which may help the horse like this. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing this improve.